What's going on, you guys? When every fight is getting made, it seems like every fight in the sport of boxing is starting to get made. But the fight that we've been talking about for 5 years now, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, still hasn't got made. But Steven Espinoza, the pseudo promoter for PBC and the executive for Showtime, I should say the spokesman for PBC, because really there's nobody really to speak up for this fight to let people know kind of what's going on. Is it happening? Are you guys still interested, etc.? He's still interested in this fight, and he still seems to be very optimistic that this thing is going to happen. Like I told you guys on Bushido Boxing TV, I got the phone call, right? And then I gave you guys the good news about that fight. I say we just leave it alone. Don't let it really go too public. And let them guys work it out if they go work it out. We got other fights to distract us in the meantime. But Steven Espinoza had quite a bit to say. Did Spence and Thurman fall apart? Is that the fight that fell apart?
Same thing. There was on Ryan and Tank, there was a deal struck, and then obviously they were both going to take interim fights, or at least, ended up the only Tank did. Crawford did the Amadisian fight. Spence was going to go do his fight. His fell apart. As soon as Spence...
Who fell apart for Spence? Right? Was it Thurman? Did that fall apart? Did that fight behind the scenes, Errol Spence and Keith Thurman, was that fight a struggle to be made behind the scenes? It fell apart, right? Is that what fell apart for Errol Spence Jr.?
They've started to do some additional discussions. So they've been consistent, their discussions pretty much throughout. They're just coming to light now, which I think is a better thing. I think it's quietly. The first negotiation is better public. Maybe keeping it quiet the second time around gives it a better chance of success. Look, I'm not going to out anybody, in terms of what their deals are. But the reality is, if there was, there's plenty of other fights that we have done where fighters did not get guarantees. There've been Mayweather fights that have been guarantees. There've been, other pay-per-view guys that they get guarantees. It's not that unusual. See, the reality is, Floyd on a lot of these, not a lot, some of them, he opted not to take guarantees, because the reality is, if we're paying a guarantee, we're going to get a bigger piece of the pie. So if you believe in your event's going to perform like a Spence Crawford would perform, you don't want to ask for a guarantee, because that's going to say, to me, I'm going to say, okay, if I'm paying out some money, I'm going to get a bigger piece of the pie. So at the end of the day, I don't think it's all that unusual to make a deal without a guarantee. It's just a different choice on how much risk someone wants to take.
I mean, look, as far as the guarantee thing, that's whatever, right? I don't know. I don't see why you wouldn't get a guarantee, right? I don't see why you wouldn't, but I don't know. That's I guess that's subject to each fighter. It seemed like to me like they at least get something guaranteed, right? For the most part, a lot of these guys, everybody that fought Errol Spence got something guaranteed, whether it was 2 million, 1.5, whatever it was, they got something guaranteed on paper, right? I don't know, but Terrence Crawford, it looked like he was getting nothing. But like I said, that was in the past. Now, from what I'm hearing, everything's they agreed to the split. I don't know, right? We hear things. Let's try not to hear too much, because that's what jinxed it. That's what I felt that jinxed it the first time.
So, is it true that both guys are kind of negotiating over the phone, or it's kind of BS?
I don't want to get too much into it, because like I've said, I think that a lot of times, too much of the public display of negotiation is actually an obstacle. But look, the negotiations have never really stopped. I mean, they took a pause. There's the Avanesian fight. Crawford, Spence is focusing on another fight before he got hurt. So there's still conversations ongoing, and until one of the guys says it's over, or I'm done fighting, or whatever, I don't think anybody's given up at this point.
I actually want to follow that up. Do you believe that Gervonta?
But see, the problem with that is that the sport must continue. You can't just put everything on hold for this fight. Now, fans seem to be getting tired of it at this point, right? You can't. The division is already held up. The welterweight division has already been held up. Guys are waiting for their title shots. Guys are moving around sanctioned bodies and doing things. I mean, how much longer are we gonna wait? Now, when you see fights like Tank and Garcia get made, I mean, anything's possible, right? If a fight like that can get made, then anything's possible. So, I mean, look, like I told you guys on Bushido Boxing TV, I got the phone call. I got the good news, right? But it's something that really shouldn't even go mainstream and let them work it out if they're working it out. Now, Errol Spence fight that fell apart. What is the fight that fell apart? It has to be Keith Thurman, right? What else other option? I mean, how could that fall apart if that's the fight that he's supposed to be fighting at 154? How much do Steven Espinoza really know, right? Who knows? It seems like he knows quite a bit, but then again, he could also be a guy who knows how to really play the media. So yeah, what was this fight that fell apart with Spence? Who knows, right? We do know the fans was assuming that the Crawford fight fell apart, but according to Espinoza himself, he said that the talks has simply just paused. So yeah, man, hopefully these guys can actually get it done in 2023. Like I said, I heard the good news, but I'm gonna just hold tight on it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, look, we heard a lot of things leading up to this for the last time with this fight, and it just simply didn't happen. So I think that with fights like Tank and Ryan being made, I think it really motivate these guys to really do what they need to do. So yeah, we got some other fights to distract us. We got other fights to distract us in the meantime while they work their situation out. So when every fight is being made, hopefully Errol Spence Crawford is making a fight.
Ryan can actually kind of push those guys and say, not to necessarily say they're taking like the limelight, but like, damn, like those guys are on 2 different networks and 2 different sides of the street, quote unquote. They made it happen. It's going to be a mega fight. You think that'll kind of push them in the right direction?
I see what you're saying, but I'm not sure that there's really like any of that necessary. I know for a fact that Spence wants this fight very, very badly. And I believe Terrence when he says that he wants it very badly as well. So I think really what it is, it's sort of a disconnect on certain expectations around the business. It's not about platforms. It's not about things like those kind of obstacles. It's about what is the deal and what are the deal details that work for both sides, and we just haven't been able to all get on the same page. So I think the solution to that is just more time and more hard work, and you keep finding a way and trying to reach a middle ground where everybody is happy or at least similarly unhappy.
Gotcha.
So I'm looking at it like this, man. They need time to work it out, but the clock is ticking, right? I think Crawford had an X amount of time before the WBO really steps in and pushes on the Rocha thing, right? Errol Spence has a certain amount of time to do what he needs to do with his fight situation, the WIBF and the WBA or whatever else he got. So, I mean, the box is not going to stop waiting for these guys for too much longer. We waited long enough. It's been 5 years since we first started talking about this fight. I think it's going to rival the Mayweather Pacquiao as far as 6-year-long wait till the fight eventually happens. Unfortunately for these guys are still younger prime fighters, so they'll still be relatively in their prime by the time they get in the ring. But I mean, man, come on, we got to get it done. I heard the good news though, right? Steven Espinoza, he's not going to give us too much. He don't want to jinx it. He don't want to put it out in the public anyway. So, but he said they're working on it. They never stopped. Both guys want the fight. We want the fight. I'm not gonna give up on it at this point. We've been talking about it this long. I'm thinking they're working it out. But in the meantime, we got other fights to distract us. Usyk Fury, hopefully they can get it together. Fury seems to like he's playing games still. Ryan Garcia Tank is happening. Big fight for the sport. Benavidez plant coming up, right? We got a lot of fights coming up in boxing to keep us distracted in the meantime while Errol Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford work things out and get this fight that we've been talking about for 5 years now. Like, subscribe, holla at your boy. Peace out.